What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down and take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching story and combine them together into one big video. Now, today's full story video is going to be about Robert Rowdy's run on Elektra. Let me explain. You see, back in 2001, Marvel gave her her own series once again. Now, originally, it was kicked off by Brian Michael Bendis, but then he left the title after one story. Then they brought in Greg Rucka, and Greg did a great job in trying to change the actual direction of the character. But then after Greg left, you then had Robert Rowdy stepped in. Now, for Rowdy, he believed that when it came to Elektra, she needs to be an assassin again. So he kind of ignored everything that Greg did when it came to character and brought her back into the role of being one of the best assassins in the world. Now, unfortunately, his run kind of went to the very end of the series, only 4 story arcs. But in those 4 story arcs, he really showed off how great of an assassin she is and how great she is overcoming different kinds of challenges with her being an assassin for hire. And so here is today's full story video. I do hope you enjoy. Okay, so getting back into our coverage over Elektra, we are actually going to pick back up with the 2001 series again. Now, technically, we're at the point where Greg Rucka is no longer the writer of the series. He did a small run on the character, which honestly was a great run, but after he left, Marvel wanted to continue the book. And so we had a new writer step in, and that was Robert Rodi. Now, Robert Rodi was not really trying to follow what Greg did with the actual character. Instead, it was Robert saying, let's take Elektra back to what she was, an assassin, a killer. She loves the idea of going after her different targets. And so in his first 2-part story arc, he kind of shows us that he is not going to follow Greg Rucka's work at all. And the reason why I'm saying that because the 2-part story arc is actually called The Mark and the Job. Now, the 2-part story arc is more like a POV situation where the first chapter, we actually see the POV of somebody being hunted down by Elektra, while the second chapter is the POV of her doing the hunting. It really shows that Roddy is not trying to follow Greg's work at all and bring Elektra back in the line of being an assassin who takes different jobs to kill off different people across the world. And so getting into the opening pages of today's story arc, we actually do pick up with a character known as Mr. Preble. Now, Mr. Preble is going to be our POV character and kind of show us what it feels like to be hunted down by Elektra across the world. Now, by this point, we actually see Mr. Preble going to some building that he owns, but apparently he had hired a security team that could hopefully protect him from Elektra. Now, we do learn the actual leader's name of this crew, and his name is Bauer. Now, Bauer is not really going to be that important for today's story arc, but he is going to be around and kind of help us see why Mr. Preble had officially given up when it comes to trying to get away from Elektra. Because once you have Preble go inside the actual building, you have Bauer say, okay, so you know what? We made sure the entire place is locked down. We got a plan to protect you. Like, all you need to do is stay in this room right here, but stay away from the windows. And also make sure you don't drink anything. But for Mr. Preble, he's kind of like, listen, I've been on the run for a good while now. And I'm going to tell you right now, no matter what you do, you can't stop her. And matter of fact, you are the first team I hired to actually protect me. I had hired other people to protect me earlier, but they all had failed when it came to protecting me. Now, for Bauer, he's kind of like, what do you mean? And this leads into Mr. Preble kind of telling us about each team he hired to protect him from Elektra and how they all had failed. Now, here's the thing. You see, you have Mr. Preble actually tell us that he had hired 14 different crew to protect him from Elektra in the last 6 days. But apparently, in those 6 days, she had killed off every single member of all those different crews who were trying to stop her. Now, when it comes to Preble, he's going to give us some different examples, but the key one kind of showed him that Elektra is an unstoppable force. And the reason why I'm saying that because the first example he gives us that he had basically hired a guy known as Trask. And when it came to Trask, he realized the best way to actually protect him from Elektra was to build a safe room. Now, this safe room only had one way in, the front door, or the main door, sorry. But the main door also had some high-tech security on it to keep people out. And there was no vents to use to sneak into the actual room. And so to Trask and also Preble, they believed they had the best game plan to stop Elektra. But apparently she was able to break into that facility, find a safe room, break open the door, kill off Trask. But luckily for Trask, he was able to grab Preble and tell him to get away while Elektra, well, killed him off. And that leads into the next example of Elektra hunting him down and killing off another crew. Now, the second example he gives us that after he had lost that crew he had with Trask, he hired somebody else that was actually very close to Bauer. Not really close, but Bauer actually knew the guy. And for Bauer, he's kind of like, if you hire this friend of mine, then that means you hired someone really great and you should have been well protected. But you have Preble say, yeah, I was not really that well protected like we had thought because he then went to a different property that he had owned. Now, this property had a bunch of tunnels underneath it. Now, here's the thing. There's only one way to get out of the tunnels up into the actual house, a freight elevator that leads into the garage of the actual house. And so for Mr. Preble and the crew he hired that time, they believe that there's only one way in. That means they can guard that one way to keep her out. But the problem is, though, that means there's only one way out of the actual facility if things go south. But also the caves. If you cannot see in the caves, it makes you an easy target for Elektra. And so for Preble, he tells us that the guy he hired for that situation right there, they were all killed off in a matter of seconds. And luckily, once again, he was able to get away to hopefully hire another crew. And like I said, he's been on the run for 6 days and went through 14 different crews to protect him from Elektra. And that leads into the moment where you have Preble actually tell Bauer who is chasing him down, that it is actually Elektra. And that kind of shows us that Bauer took the job because, well, it's good money. But at the same time, he had no idea who he was trying to protect Preble from. And so now he knows, he's kind of like, wait a second. I'm guarding you from Elektra. Now, to Bauer and his crew, they can't believe that he's being chased down by Elektra because it seems that most people in Marvel Comics believe that Elektra is dead. Like she is basically a myth because she died a few years back, not really knowing that actually she's alive again and well, she's chasing him down. Now, for Mr. Preble, he's kind of like, no, she is not a myth. I have seen her in action. I have seen what she has done to all those past crew. And I'm telling you right now, even though you believe that you're the best kind of crew that I had hired, I'm telling you right now, you and your crew are going to die. You and your crew are going to fail because nothing can truly stop her. Now, the ending of this chapter is really more of Bauer and Preble both realizing that the entire plan that Bauer had put together as a way to protect Preble from Elektra is falling apart in a matter of minutes. And the reason why, because she's already there. She's already killing off different crew members that belong to Bauer's crew. She's already dismantling other things he set up to hopefully protect Preble from her. Now, for Preble, he's kind of like, listen, it's too late. And I realize after 6 days of running, there's no point of me running anymore because she is not going to give up. And sooner or later, she is going to kill me off. And so you have Preble tell Bauer, you're fired. Like, I want to make sure that you actually survive. So get out of here now. Go home to your wife, your girlfriend, or your kids, whatever, but you have been officially fired. Now, for Bauer, he's not trying to give up. Matter of fact, he's saying, listen, you gave me this job. I'm going to make sure I actually finish the job. But you didn't have Preble trick Bauer out of the room and lock the door behind him. And he says, no, you have been fired. Get the heck out of here before she appears. Now, while you have Bauer trying to get back into the room with Preble, Elektra does appear, but she let Bauer go. And after letting him go, she goes into the room to kill off Mr. Preble. Now, as she does walk into the room, he does offer her a drink, and really, we don't see her take that drink at the end of this chapter, but the next one. But either way, as she does walk into the room to kill him off, we kind of end the whole POV for Mr. Preble to kind of see what it was like to be hunted down by Elektra for 6 days straight, to kind of realize that almost everything you try to stop her was not going to work at all. Now, the next chapter, like I said earlier, is going to be her POV, what it's like to be the hunter, not the hunted. But either way, at the end of this chapter, we do see her killing off Mr. Preble. And so as we get into Elektra issue number 24, we actually pick up with Elektra working as a stripper. Yeah, you heard that right. She's working as a stripper. Now, the reason why, because, well, one of her targets, or two of her targets are in that strip club. And the best way to get close to them is to pretend to be an actual stripper. And so literally by the end of the section, we see her get the jump on them while she was mid-dancing as a stripper, pulls her weapons out, and kills them off just like that. And like I said earlier, this chapter really does focus more on Elektra's POV, what it's like to be the hunter. And so we actually see Elektra at an airport, and we see her being able to receive a job from a monk. Now, at first, it did seem like the monk was just a regular monk who was just passing out stuff about his lifestyle. But after she passes him, we see that she had received a package. Inside that package is information about her next job. And then we see her fly over to New York to take care of her next job. And so with this chapter really focusing more on Elektra's POV, we're going to see what it was like for her to hunt down Mr. Preble from the last chapter. Now, in the first section for him in this chapter, we actually see him on the phone still freaking out about the idea that he's being hunted down by Elektra. And really, this section right here kind of shows most basic kind of protection. Just two guys outside his actual door while he's on the phone with the boss of the actual crew. But anyways, you have Elektra take those guards out so easily. By the time she finishes them off, when she looks up, he's on the run again. And it kind of shows her kind of like, okay, you got away this time, but I'll still be on your trail. And sooner or later, I'm going to get the chance to actually kill you off. Now, let's not forget that in the last chapter, Mr. Preble gave us some examples of what different crews try to do to protect him from Elektra. Like, for example, the guy known as Trask. Now, when it came to Trask, he believed that the best way to protect Preble was to build a safe room. And his safe room, or panic room, will only have one door, only one way into the actual room, that one door. And the thing is, that door would have some high-tech security to keep people out. If you add some guards around the door and outside the actual building completely, then most likely Elektra would not get over to Preble. Now, as we all know, in the last chapter, that plan did not work out at all, because we saw in the last chapter, or heard from Preble, that Trask's plan failed completely, that Elektra was able to get through his actual plan. And so we see in this section that Trask's plan falls apart very quickly. And you have Elektra just killing off all these guards, including being able to get through that one door that leads into the panic room. Now, because Trask was inside the panic room with Preble, he was able to kind of keep Elektra busy long enough to allow Preble to actually escape, to go on to his next plan of hiding from Elektra. Now, like we saw in the last chapter, Preble gave us another example of the idea that he had a house somewhere, and that house had tunnels running underneath it. Now, to Preble, he said the next guy he hired after Trask believed that those tunnels could be used as a way to stop Elektra because there's only one way in and out of the actual tunnels, a freight elevator that leads up into the actual, house. The problem was, though, for Elektra, she was able to get into the tunnels, and because she's able to see better in the dark than the guards can, she was able to take out all the guards just like that, including the actual leader of the crew. And so by the time we get to the end of this section, the entire crew was killed off in the tunnels or outside the actual house. So she was able to sneak into the tunnels. And so you have Preble find the entire crew dead, and he dips out, trying to get away from her once again. And so then we get another page to remind us that for Preble, he was on the run for many, many days, for many hours, with different crews, just trying his best to get away from Elektra, leading up to the moment where he was then being protected by Bauer and his crew, like we saw in the last chapter. And so that leads us into the ending of this story arc, where you do have Elektra being able to arrive at the island that Bauer was trying to use as a way to protect Preble. As we all know, Elektra arrived on the island as well, and she began killing off all the different guards, leading up into the moment where she walks in the room, she finds Preble, she kills him, and like I said at the end of the last chapter, we do see her get that drink that he offered her after she had killed him off. And so the book kind of ends on that note because she goes back to the airport and we see her walk by the same monk once again, where she does receive another package from that monk. And of course, it gives her her next assignment. And this time, she's going to London. And this is where What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the 2001 Elektra series. Now, guys, remember, by this point in our coverage, we are officially done with Greg Rucka's run on Elektra, and now it's time for Robert Rowdy. Now, if you saw my last video, you would know how I truly felt when it came to the writing of Robert, and let me explain. You see, when it came to Greg Rucka, his main goal was to give new life to Elektra. And honestly, he did because he realized that for a very long time, Elektra was just this assassin in the world of Marvel Comics. Yes, there were some other things about her, but that was her main thing. And so when it came to Greg Rucka, he was all like, can I actually turn the character of Elektra into a proper hero? And so he did. It was one heck of a run. But then after Greg left the title in issue number 22, well, Marvel wanted the title to continue on. They realized that book was still somewhat selling. And so they brought in another writer, and that would be Robert Rowdy. And when it came to Robert Rowdy, he said, you know what? I am going to ignore everything that Greg Rucka did on the character of Elektra. So the whole idea of her now being a proper hero, being a better person, being a good person now is out the window. Now she's back to her old ways again. She's now back to being this assassin out there in the world of Marvel Comics. Now, technically, we are covering the second story written by Robert Rowdy, but in this story, you can really see, that when it comes to Robert, he is trying his best to move away from everything that Greg did when it came to the character of Elektra. Now, in today's video, we're going to cover a three-part story arc that takes place in issues number 25, 26, and 27 when it comes to the 2001 Elektra series. Now, the opening pages of issue number 25, we get the chance to actually learn about the character Elektra is going after, her target, and that would be a character known as Bridget. Now, I already know that I cannot pronounce her last name, and I'm not even going to try at all. So guys, please forgive me there. Now, when it comes to Bridget, we do learn that she's actually a dictator to a small country in Africa called the Jonda. And I really hope I pronounced that word correctly. If not, please let me know in the comments below. Now, we do learn early on that Bridget is very rude to other people. You see, right now she's in London. Now, technically, she's in London for some business stuff for her country, but in reality, she's currently just there for, well, shopping. Now, we do learn early on that she also has a son, and his name is Ibram. Now, Ibram is going to be very important for the story arc, especially in the second chapter. Now, like I said earlier, we kind of see that for Bridget, she's very rude to everyone else around her, including her own son as well. But once she's done shopping, she calls her son and her guard so that they're able to leave and go back to the hotel. Now, when it comes to Bridget, once she's able to make it back to her hotel room, she realized that she is on TV. You see, CNN is doing a special report about her. And let me explain. You see, in her own country right now, she's not loved by anybody at all. The entire country hates her guts. And let me explain why. You see, in our country, there are two different tribes, the Okala tribe and also the Pedi tribe. Now, we learn very quickly that Bridget is part of the Okala tribe, but ever since she became the actual leader of that country, well, she has done everything she can to mistreat the other tribe, the Pedi tribe. Here is one example. If you are a woman, you are technically being forced to join the brothels and, service the men of the army of that country. And even though you don't want to be there, you have no choice. Your leader says if you are a PD woman, you have to work at this brothel and service the men of the army. And so we learn very quickly that there are a lot of people in our country who want to see her dead. Now, CNN, they also announced that there is a possibility that the reason why she's in London is not for actual business, is so that she can actually shop. Now, after all of that, you didn't have her say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and go to bed for the night. The problem is, though, outside her window, there is Elektra. Now, we already know why she's there for. She is there to kill off Bridget. And really, for Elektra, this is the perfect time to go ahead and kill off her target. Now, for Elektra, we have no idea who hired her, but it has to be somebody very close to Bridget. Now, for Elektra, like I said, this is the perfect time for her to go ahead and kill off her target. But the problem is that you didn't have a bunch of guards bust into the room. And here's the reason why. Because remember, for Bridget, she's right now in London. She is away from her country. And with her being away, you had folks in her country trying to overthrow the government, to get rid of her and kick her out of her power position. And so once her guards got word, they said, hey, listen, we got to go. Right now, our goal is to get on the plane and head back home before they are able to take over the government of that country. And so for Elektra, she now needs a new game plan when it comes to her being able to kill off Bridget. Now, once you have Bridget being able to make it back to her country, we continue this trend of realizing how evil she truly is. Let me explain. Because once she gets back to her country, she tells her main guard, like, hey, listen, I need you to go ahead and offer those guys who had taken over that government building amnesty. And her main guard, he does what he's told to do. Now, the next morning, she then tells him, okay, cool, listen, so I heard they took our offer, and guess what? I want them all killed off, just like that. Go ahead and execute them. And by the way, if they have wives or daughters, send them over to the brothels. Now, one of her members of her cabinet gets very upset. Like, what are you doing? Like, you basically offered them amnesty and now you're going to kill them off. And then their wives and daughters are being sent over to the brothels. And she says, yes, because every single one of them were part of the PD tribe. Now, for this guy, he's like, and so what? And to her, she's kind of like, I hate them. They're nasty people and they deserve to die and only be used to relieve the stress of our army soldiers. And that is it. And so we see how evil she truly is. But then later on that night, we pick up with Elektra. Now, this is Elektra just trying to pick up where she left off at in London, which is killing off Bridget. The problem is that to get into the bedroom of Bridget, you need to have clearance for a retinal scan. And somehow Elektra was able to get that clearance into the bedroom of Bridget. Now, for Elektra, this is great. And the reason why, because now she is able to finally finish this job, kill off her target. Except when she goes to kill off Bridget, she finds out Bridget is not there at all. Instead, it's her main security guard. Somehow he knew that Elektra was coming. And so he told his boss to switch spots with him. And so right now, Bridget's in his bedroom and he hid in her bedroom. And for the security guard, his main goal now is to find a way to kill off Elektra. And that is just the ending of the first chapter. And so as we dive into the second chapter, we then jump back 3 weeks ago where we pick up with a character known as Babin. Now we saw Babin in our last chapter at the very end. He was the guy who was very upset with Bridget once she gave those rebels amnesty, but then decided to kill them off the next morning and then send their wives and daughters over to the brothels. Now remember, she only did that because they were all part of the PD tribe. And so we learned that Babin is also part of that tribe as well. And so he was very upset to hear that all those people were sent to their death. And so for Babin, he was the one who hired Elektra. Now we do learn a tad bit more about the actual history of Bridget. You see, we learned that apparently for Bridget, she was not the original leader of the country. Matter of fact, it was her husband. You see, he died many years ago, but apparently she made sure that word of his death did not get out to the public. And the reason why? To give herself enough time to actually take over that leadership role where her husband had left off at. Now, once she was able to get that role, we then learned that apparently for her husband, he also hated the PD tribe as well, but the only difference was that he still allowed them to do whatever they need to do to survive in the country. But once you had her take over, everything changed. She began to go after every single member of that tribe, killing them off or send them over to the brothels. And then she took all their property and all their items as well and put their items inside her treasury. And so for Babin, it's kind of like, listen, she's been hitting my tribe for so long, I'm tired of it. I need you to kill her off. And for Elektra, it's kind of like, hey, as long as you pay me, the job is going to get done. Now, for Elektra, right after she was able to accept that job offer, she realized that she just can't go straight after Bridget because she is a leader of a country. And so for Elektra, that means she needs some time to observe Bridget, to learn more about her. And so you have Elektra begin to watch over her security team, to watch over her son, to gather all the info she needs to find the best way to get close to Bridget. And she realized the best way to do that is to use her son, Imran, because Imran believes that he is some kind of player, that he's some kind of ladies' man, because this man believes with all the money and power he has, he can have any girl he wants in the world. But on top of that, he loves hot European women. And so for Elektra, she fits that bill perfectly. And so you have her pretend to be this hot European woman who wants to be with him. But while pretending, she's then able to collect all these different pieces of information about Bridget. Like, for example, when she goes to bed, it's always at 9 o'clock. And that truly explains why we saw Elektra outside her hotel window at 9 o'clock trying to kill off Bridget. Now, for Elektra, she realized that she had just lost her opportunity to kill off Bridget. But then she realized, wait a second, I still have a way to get close to Bridget, and that would be her son, Ibrahim, because that man lives in the palace as well, back in the home country. But at the same time, the man also loves hot European women. And for Elektra, she fits the bill perfectly. And so you have Elektra go right back over to him and continue to flirt with him. Now, with her being able to do that, he's all like, listen, I have fallen in love with you. And And so my goal now is to find a way to sneak you into the palace, really sneak you into the country first, and then find a way to sneak you into the palace so that we're able to spend more time together. And so for Elektra, she just found her best way to get inside the palace, but to also get a way to get close to Bridget, to basically kill her off. Now, for Ibram, he was able to sneak Elektra into the palace that him and his mom stay in their country. The problem is that he's not allowed to show Elektra around the palace until his mom goes to bed, because his mom hates the idea of her son spending any time with somebody outside of her tribe. And so for him, it's like, listen, I love hot European women. My mom would not approve of that. And so you have to say, stay here in my room until my mom goes to bed. Once she does go to bed, then I can show you around the palace. Now, this leads into us learning a whole lot more about what is happening in this country. Let me explain. You see, she learns that apparently there was a senator in this country who is now exiled. And the reason why? Because he was trying to work with somebody over in America. Now, this American apparently owned an American company, and they're going to use their money to finance the revolution in this country. And apparently, for the American company, they would get a major tax break if they were able to actually finance the revolution in this country. Now, for Elektra, she realized that she had just killed off a target a while back in a strip club. Matter of fact, in our last video. But either way, she remembers that one of the guys she killed off said about how this company is trying to, help out this country to have a revolution so they're able to have a huge major tax break. And so for Elektra, she realized that maybe there is more to this job than she was told when she had taken the job. Now, for Elektra and Ibram, they continue to go around the palace, but they have no idea that technically they're being watched by the main guard of Bridget. And that explains how he knew at the end of the first chapter that Elektra was coming to kill off Bridget. Either way, when it comes to Ibram, he also shows Elektra how to access different rooms, the whole scanning process. And so then, once she's able to get alone with Ibram, she then kills him off. And so that explains how she was able to access the room of Bridget by using his head or his eye through the scanning process to get into the room of Bridget. And this leads us back into the present moment, because you did have Elektra trying to sneak into the room of Bridget to hopefully kill her off. But unfortunately, she found the main guard for Bridget, who knew that she was coming. And so he asked his boss to switch rooms with him. And so now Elektra is being told that this room is going to be completely surrounded by guards very soon. Now, for Elektra, she realized there is a small dog in the room, and she uses a small dog as a way to distract the guard long enough so that she's able to kill him off, but to also jump out the window. And so by the time the rest of the security team arrive to stop her, it's too late. She had already jumped out the window. And so now that's the ending of the second chapter. So as we get into the final chapter of this video, it's really more of Elektra just trying her best to get away from all the guards who just barged into Bridget's room. Now, for Elektra, there are a lot of guards with a lot of guns. So unfortunately for her, she's trying her best to dodge every single shot she can. But unfortunately, she does get shot in the shoulder. But after a few pages, you do have Elektra being able to work her way through all the different guards to just be able to actually get a helicopter to fly away. And so for Elektra, she begins to realize that there is a possibility that she has been played. And the possibility that Babin is just using her as a way to remove Bridget. But in reality, Babin is also just as corrupt as Bridget is. Either way, for Elektra, as she's flying around the helicopter, you have more guards being able to actually shoot down the helicopter, which of course means she does crash back down into the actual palace. But at least now she has gotten closer to her actual target, and that would be Bridget. And so, really, the second half of the final chapter of this book is really more of Elektra just chasing down Bridget. It's really her trying her best to get away from Elektra, but it's also Elektra just fighting through all these different guards to just get to Bridget. Like, these guards do not stand a chance at all. But either way, by the time we get to the end of this actual section, it's just Elektra and also Bridget. And you have Elektra just go ahead and kill off Bridget just like that. But she still has one more person to talk to, the person that had actually hired her. Now, let's not forget, the person who hired Elektra is a guy known as Babin. Now, when it comes to Babin, he was kind of hoping that Elektra would take the job, but also die in the process. He was kind of hoping that she would be able to kill off Bridget, but also die in the process so that he would not have to pay her. But also, with Bridget being dead, that means he'll be next in line to take over as the leader of this country. And so you have Elektra pay him a visit. And she's all like, listen, I realize that you were trying to play me, but then another group here had hired me to get rid of you, a group called the DJA. Now, I don't know who the DJ is, but it does sound like they were a group of people who were very concerned of somebody who was trying to remove the current leader of this country, which was Bridget. And they said they were afraid of this person right here who is just as corrupt as she was. And of course, that would be Babin. And so they hired Elektra to go ahead and kill him off. Just like that. And she realized that he hired her kind of help with the process to get rid of Bridget, but then have himself move into that leadership role. But once she learned that he was corrupt and another group said, hey, we'll hire you to kill him, she was down just like that. And so the last few pages is just Elektra killing Golf Babin. Bam, he is dead. And this Okay, so it's time for us to continue our coverage over Elektra. And now we're going to pick back up with some good old Robert Rowdy's run on the actual character. Now, like I said in our last couple of videos, when it came to Robert Rowdy, he kind of ignored everything Greg Rucka did when it came to the character of Elektra. The whole idea that Greg's goal was to take Elektra and actually turn her into a hero. But thanks to Robert Rowdy, she's kind of back to her old ways again, being a true assassin, going around the world killing off different targets. Now, you're going to notice that we have skipped over issue number 28, and here's the reason why. You see, when it comes to issue number 28, it's really more of an epilogue for a couple story arcs we had did when it came to Robert Rowdy's run on the character. You see, in that one single issue, we just learned that basically there was a group of brokers who were kind of behind the scenes the entire time, and the ones who had hired Elektra to go after the different targets around the world in our last couple videos. But then they decided that they want to go ahead and get rid of her, basically kill her off, because just in case, they will make sure that nothing gets back to them. But when she found out they were trying to kill her off, she said, you know what? I don't like that. And she technically killed off the entire group. That was just issue number 28. Like I said, it was not really that important for us to cover. It was kind of like, okay, cool. Now we know who hired her for all these different targets, and that's really it. And also, they tried to double cross her, and she killed them. And so now we're able to move on to the next story arc. And so getting into issue number 29, today's storyline, we actually pick up with Elektra in a small island called Nau. And I really hope I pronounced that correctly. I try my best to go online to figure out how to pronounce the word. And unfortunately, I couldn't find anything at all. Like, I tried my best. Either way, when it comes to Nau, it's a small island near Taiwan. Now, over the years, this small island has been ruled by other countries around the world, like Great Britain, for example, but they're finally free. But here comes the big problem, though. You see, you now have a cult on the actual island. Now, the cult worships a god, the god of death, in their culture named Bara. Now, Bara means the god of death, like I said earlier. Now, for this cult, they do have a leader, and that'll be Piaka Lowell. and it basically means the bloody prophet because this person was supposedly chosen by the god of death, Bara. And so now this guy was able to build up a cult, a nice sized army of people to possibly use to throw over the government of this nation. And that's where Elektra comes in because somebody who works in the government office had actually hired her to help out with this situation because they are afraid that sooner or later this actual cult might try to attack the Capitol and actually try to overthrow the government. And that right there will be a huge problem for this nation, a nation that is still trying to grow after years and years of being controlled by other nations around the world. Now, for this guy, he tells Elektra this, that nobody has officially seen the actual cult leader, but apparently this person is able to speak his words to get people involved, to have them fall in line with his actual goals. Now, on top of that, he also tells Elektra that most likely the cult's base is somewhere in the mountains. And that is a huge problem because the actual nation has not been able to actually map out the actual mountain. So they have no idea where the exact base of the cult is at, but it's somewhere in the mountains. And so for Elektra, her goal, find the base. Find the leader and kill him off before this cult is able to possibly ruin this nation. But now we are going to shift our focus over to one of the members of the cult. Now, when it comes to this member of the actual cult, we don't actually know his name, but we're going to be using him as a way to get a POV of what it's like to be a cult member of this cult. And we do learn very quickly here that apparently they go around the countryside of this nation and burning down all the farms on the countryside, but also killing off the people who had owned those farms. And the reason why, because those people, those farms, they are falling in line with the actual government, going against what the cult actually stands for. And so because of that, they all have been killed off and their farms have been burned down. Now, the member that we are actually following, we see him being able to wrap up a head of somebody he had killed. And he takes that head back over to where the actual base of the cult is at. And so we're kind of getting a good idea of where the actual base is at. Somewhere deep in the mountains where it, of course, snows a lot in that area. Now, like I said earlier, nobody truly knows what the cult leader actually looks like. Nobody knows who it actually is, it seems like, because you have this one member getting very upset because he wants to, apparently, a lot of people want to just go ahead and actually attack the Capitol. But apparently, the leader of this cult has not decided when they are actually going to do it. And apparently, he wants a word with the actual leader. He's also very upset about the idea that he's not allowed to put the head of a person that he had just killed on top of a pole. But either way, you do have the guy try to walk over to the actual building the leader is currently in. But then he is stopped by the general. Now, we learn here that apparently the general is the only person who has actually seen the leader. And he tells this guy, no, you are not allowed to talk to him. No, you are not allowed to go in there at all. Right now, you talk to me. And then I talk to him. And I get it. You're getting very upset about the idea that we have not attacked the Capitol. Just know that it's coming very soon. Now, we do learn here that apparently the government official, had told Elektra that their main goal was to get the king, the queen, and the princess off the island. Now, the king is apparently already gone. It's now time for the queen and also for the princess. Now, the princess, she's on her way over to the airport, to the plane that's going to get her off the island. But the problem is that her transport team, they get ambushed by members of the cult. And just like that, one by one, each member of this actual transport team is taken out by the members of the cult. And then they're able to grab the princess and take her back to their base. And so now the princess is actually their prisoner. But as we jump back over to the actual base of the cult, that is when you have everyone gather around the actual building the cult leader stays in, where you have the cult leader reveal himself to every single member of the cult. Now, we don't get the chance to actually see the leader of the cult. It's actually saved for a later part in this story arc. But for right now, this cult leader is able to speak his words, to get everyone motivated, to get everyone ready to actually attack the Capitol. And every single member, they're falling in line. They're getting ready to go ahead and follow their leader's orders to attack the Capitol, to actually bring it down. But getting back over to the princess, who's currently a prisoner for, well, this cult, we do learn that apparently they don't have the princess, that in reality they have Elektra, that actually she wore a disguise to pretend to look just like the princess so that she would be able to find the actual base of the cult, but to also get close enough to kill off the cult leader. And so just like that, she's now able to go on with her mission with an easier chance of killing off her target. And so as we dive into Elektra issue number 30, it's really more of, well, Robert Rowdy trying to remind us that Elektra is a master assassin. Now, technically, we already know that. Like, come on. It's Elektra. Of course she's a master assassin. But what I mean by that statement is that it's really more of her showing off her speed, being able to move around the base without anybody actually seeing her. And if they do see her, bam, they're killed off just like that in a matter of seconds. And so for Elektra, it's her trying her best, just going around the actual base of this cult to hopefully figure out who is the actual leader of the cult, because she has to find him and then, of course, kill him off. And so it's just her just listening in on all the different conversations going on around the actual base, hoping to hear the right one that could lead her over to the person she needs to kill. Now, for Elektra, she does find an old man who's talking to younger members of the actual cult. Now, for this old man, it's him really explaining why he joined the cult. Because for the younger people, they had joined the cult for a completely different reason. They had joined the cult because, well, they were promised the idea of getting a huge amount of money, the idea of getting a lot of women. It's the whole idea of them getting things in reward for helping out taking down the Capitol. But for the old man, it's completely different. He says, listen, let me tell y'all why I joined the cult, because I've been on this island for a very long time, but I also know the history of the island as well. I know that this island has been taken over by many nations around the world. We have been forced to speak their tongues. We have been forced to praise their gods. And unfortunately, our culture was dying off piece by piece by piece. And so when Bara, the god of death, said that his prophet would come back one day, and he did, we realized, me and the older members of this cult realized, it's finally happening. This older God is bringing back his prophet to lead us back into our ways, the ways that were destroyed over time thanks to other cultures. Now, for the younger people, they're kind of like laughing at him because they realize that he truly believes that the cult leader is actually this prophet for the god of death. But either way, it's him saying, you are the fools, because this leader is going to change the island for the betterment of all our people. Now, once you had the young folks run off to go ahead and get ready to raid the Capitol, the old man falls down and he sees Elektra. Now, this moment right here is really important for his character, but you do have Elektra continue on to find the actual leader. Now, getting back over to the guards who were assigned to watch the princess, really more Elektra in disguise as the princess, well, the next guard comes for his shift, and he realized the last guard is no longer there. He's kind of like, okay, that's weird. Now, in reality, the other guard is being used right now by Elektra as a prop, make it seem like the princess is just asleep. But in reality, it's a dead body right there, and Elektra is just running around the entire base of the cult. Now, the next guard to come in, he realized there's something off about the idea of the body on the bed. And he realized it's his friend, the first guard, who was assigned to watch over the princess. Again, being Elektra in disguise. But the problem is, by the time they find the dead body of that guard, explosions everywhere to distract every single member of the actual cult to give Elektra just enough time to hopefully find the leader of the cult. And thing is, she's actually able to find the main building where the cult leader is actually hiding out at. Except when she walks into the room to meet this cult leader, she actually sees a young boy. This young boy is actually the leader of the entire cult. And so as we dive into the final chapter for today's video, it's really more of Elektra kind of wondering what to do here, because now she realized it's a child that was actually the leader of the entire cult. And she's not really up to the idea of killing off a young boy. And so she walks away and she's kind of wondering how in the world is she going to be able to actually complete this contract, because she was hired to kill off the cult leader, and the cult leader is a child. Now, because Elektra did cause a lot of explosions earlier, doing a lot of damage to the actual, base of the cult, you do have some members telling the general of the cult, like, hey, listen, we only lost a few men, but hey, we have lost a lot of weapons, cannons, other kinds of gears we could use to possibly attack the capital. And so for the general, he wants to go ahead and give up. But then the young boy appear. Now remember, by this point, they already know the young boy is their cult leader, and he begins to give out another powerful speech. Now, here's the problem though, because he is now talking about the idea of just going ahead and continuing to attack the capital, even though right now they have lost a lot of weapons and other kind of gears that could possibly help them. But on top of that, they have lost a few men as well. And so for the general, it's kind of like, what are you doing? We do not stand a chance attacking the capital. We are going to lose. But for the cult leader, he's all like, no, we got this. We can do it. And every single member of the cult, they're kind of, again, falling in line with their leader. And word spreads very quickly. And let me explain, because if you were a farmer, like I said earlier, if you were a farmer or you were somebody who was part of a farmland, if you believed in the government over the cult, you'll be killed off and your farm would be burned down. But if you were on the other side, like you actually believe in the cult, you would live, but also when the time comes, you would actually join the army in the attack of the actual capital. And so you have all these different farmers or helping hands beginning to join the marching of the actual cult, heading towards the actual capital. They're getting ready for the big battle. But now nighttime comes around. It's time for them to rest. But this leads into Elektra being able to pull off her master plan. But I want to jump back over to the old man again. And here's the reason why, because remember, the old man truly believed in the cult leader, but in a completely different reason. He believed that if the cult was able to take over the government, then the old ways of this nation will finally come back after years and years being locked away thanks to other nations controlling this actual nation. But you did have some younger members go over to the older man, and he says, listen, I no longer believe in the cult. I no longer believe in the whole idea of our old ways coming back. And it's kind of like, okay, that's a huge change in this character. What happened to him? Well, he said he saw the angel of death. And of course, he's talking about Elektra. But I want to get back over to the cult leader. Here's the reason why, because you have the cult leader being actually excited about the fact that his army is slowly growing, that he was able to get more people on his side. And he truly believes that maybe, just maybe, they should be able to win the battle against the capital. But the problem is you have the general go off. And the reason why? Because the general was the one who put everything together. Let me explain. You see, for the young boy, he lost his mom at the age of 4 years old. And so he was founded by the general. Now, when it came to the general, he realized that he had a great opportunity to build up a cult here. And so what he did was he used the young boy as a way to build up an army by saying the young boy is the prophet who's supposed to lead the army into the war against the capital to overthrow the government. But in reality, it was just a general trying to reach that goal. And so all the different kinds of decisions that were being made was really more the general than the actual young boy. The young boy was just being used as a model, a figure to have people actually believe in. But now the young boy, he truly believes in what he was raised to supposedly be. He believes he is the prophet. And so you have other members of the cult kill off the general. And so now the young boy is truly in charge of the entire cult. But this begins the downfall for the actual, well, cult leader, because then he sees all these different guys around him just dying one by one. Every time he calls out for help and people run towards him to see what in the world is going on, they die. It is Elektra just showing off her speed, showing off how fast she is, because she's able to kill off all these different people without actually being seen. And so right now, for this young boy, he's freaking out. He is screaming for help, and more people are trying to come over to actually help him out. But I want to jump back over to that old man once again, and here's the reason why. Because you have the old man telling us why he had changed his ways. And he says, listen, I ran into a god, the god of death, the goddess of death. And of course, he's talking about Elektra. Now, he was drunk and he fell down when he had actually met her. And so because of him being drunk and how fast she truly was, and also his head injury, how fast she moved, he believed that she was actually real, the goddess of death. And she said, listen to me, old man. Your God is not real. He has no authority over you at all. And then she disappeared at a very fast pace. And so because of that, he believed that he was confronted by the actual angel of death. And so overnight, you have Elektra just killing off more and more members of this actual cult, to the point where it all comes down to being just a young boy. She found a different way to actually kill him, because without his cult, what can he do? Without his cult, he cannot attack the capital. He cannot overthrow the government. He can no longer be in charge at all. And now it's just people on the island who never truly believed in the cult in the first place. And so Elektra found a different way to actually complete the contract, to kill off her target without actually killing him. And so the book kind of ends on the note where you have the young boy still out there with all the dead bodies of his fallen soldiers, where you do have soldiers of the government arrive to pick up all the dead bodies. Now, for the young boy, he still believes in himself, to the point where he believes that he's actually able to recruit other people into his cult. And so he walks up to some soldiers like, hey, listen, I know that you work for the government, but like, join my side, the cult side. And they look at him kind of like, nah, bro, we heard about you. You're just a child that was able to trick a bunch of people into believing that you're some kind of prophet. But in reality, you're just a young boy. And that's really it. And so what's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the 2001 Elektra series. Now, technically, this is going to be our last video of that series. And the reason why, because after this story arc, there was only one more issue. And with that one more issue, it was really more of Robert Rowdy kind of giving us a quick rundown of the character of Elektra and how her first death had actually affected other people around the world, but also herself in the rest of her life. It's not really that important, so that's why I say today is going to be our last video for the 2001 series of Elektra, because after that book, the series was canceled. Now, with that being said, today's story arc is really more of what would happen if Elektra got sick on the job? What would happen if she got the flu in the middle of one of her assassination attempts? And it does kind of make for a somewhat interesting story arc. Not the greatest, but still somewhat enjoyable. And I do hope that you guys also enjoy today's comic book video. But here we go. Now, the opening pages of this book is really more of Elektra coming back home to America. You see, she was in a small nation in our last story arc where she was given a job to kill off a cult leader. Now, on her way back home to America, really on her way back home to her apartment, she gets a phone call for her next assignment. But while she's on that phone call, the news report is telling that there's some kind of new flu out there that's affecting a lot of people in the small area of Asia, the same area that she had just left in our previous story arc. And so we're kind of getting the hint right there that there is a possibility that Elektra might have this new flu. Either way, she does finish her phone call and she does get her new assignment to go after a different person. And matter of fact, we jump over to her next target. And so we jump over to a character known as Evgeny. And I really hope I pronounced the name correctly. I did go online to get a better idea of how to pronounce his name. Now, when it comes to Evgeny, he's actually a mob boss in this New Jersey area called Barrington Beach. Now, in this area, he owns the entire boardwalk, it seems. And matter of fact, the people there, they know him very well. The cops there, they know him very well. And matter of fact, every single person in that area, they are scared of him. Now, for Evgeny, he's kind of full of himself. He kind of believes that he is untouchable. There's no way that anybody can do anything to him. Now, we also see him with his son, Yuri. Now, when it comes to Yuri, Yuri just finished an entire career at college at Harvard University. And so this kid's kind of like, hey, Dad, listen, I think I have some good ideas for the family business. Now, this really shows that these two characters, they have different ideas of how to make money. When it comes to Evgeny, he's kind of still old school, drugs, sex workers and things like that, those kind of rings. But when it comes to Yuri, he's more on the digital side, DVDs, pirating, and the list goes on. And so for his father, he's more of like, no, I know how to run my business. No, I know what's best for our family. Yes, you may have gone to Harvard, wrong H University. Yes, you may have gone to Harvard, done great things out there, but now you're back here in my area. And let me tell you right now, I know how to work this entire area. I know what's right for our entire family. Now, he does walk into what seems to be a brothel where, of course, he's looking for a woman for the evening. Now, apparently, some new girl named Amanda had just started. And so the person in charge of the entire brothel, she tried to tell Evgeny that his new girl, Amanda, is not ready for his kind of activities. But for Evgeny, it really shows that because he believes he's untouchable, that he's in charge of everybody, that he does not care what other people think. And so he grabs a young girl and they head back to his place. Now, once they do get back to his place, you do have Amanda, the young woman, try to get away from him because she knows that she's not ready for his kind of activities. And so she was actually able to scratch his face and to get away. Now, while she's trying to get away, his guards or his fellow men are trying to shoot at her. And apparently they cannot get her at all. So she was able to get away. Now, once he does go inside for the night, we see on the outside that Elektra has arrived. Now, like I said earlier, she just came home from her last assignment. And apparently the news said that there was a new flu strain out there in that area where she was just at. And the reason why I'm bringing that up right now, because for Elektra, while she's trying to jump around the guy's actual property and trying to get towards the actual house, well, when it comes time for her to grab the next tree branch in the middle of her jump, it does seem like her vision is a tad bit messed up because she was unable to grab that tree branch and, well, she falls straight to the ground and kind of hurting her arm a tad bit. And so with that happening, she's all like, that seems weird, but also she has to retreat for the time being. Kind of give her arm a tad bit of rest so that she's able to be 100% when it comes to going after her next target. And so later on that night, she tries to scale the side of the building to get on the roof to find a better way inside the actual house. Except once she's able to reach the rooftop, once again, thanks to her being a tad bit sick right now, she makes too much noise. And of course, some guys hear her on the roof and they're kind of like, hey, we should most likely check that out. And so when they go to the rooftop, they find her. And of course, it leads into a fight. Now, really, for Elektra, if she was on top of her game right now, these two guys would be dead in a matter of seconds. But the problem is she is sick. And so she was able to take out one guy at least, but the other one was able to get away with just a stab wound. But she has to retreat because she realized there's something wrong with her. And it kind of shows that for Elektra, she's not really used to the idea of being sick. And she's kind of wondering how in the world is she going to be able to complete this job? And so as we get into the next chapter, it's really more of the guy telling his boss, Evgeny, what happened to him. Now, for his boss, Evgeny, he can't really believe what actually happened to his men. One is dead and one is injured by some kind of woman. And so for the first couple panels, it's kind of like, okay, you know what? I don't believe your story until he shows him the weapon that Elektra left behind when she stabbed this guy. And once you have Evgeny see the weapon and you have him say like, she was wearing red, she was wearing a ninja outfit, he knows who she is. He knows it is Elektra. Now, when he calls in his best guys to kind of help handle the situation, they don't believe that Elektra is there. And really, we had talked about this before when it came to Robert Rowdy's run on Elektra, because for Robert Rowdy, he basically told us that when it comes to Elektra, she's kind of like a myth to most of the people in the world. The whole idea that people don't believe that she's actually real, that she's some kind of assassin who may or may not come after you. But for Evgeny, he's like, no, I've seen her before. If she's here right now, that means she's coming after me. She's here to kill me. But the rest of his crew, they don't believe that she's actually real. But the way he's acting, they're kind of being freaked out at the moment because he's acting like a madman because he's mad at them for not believing that he's actually being hunted by Elektra. Now, at the same time, it's also him kind of wondering who had hired her because he knows that for Elektra, she would not just come after you for no actual reason. She has to have a reason to come after you. And so for Evgeny, he realized that somebody in his organization had to hire her to come after him. Now, once you have his son, Yuri, say like, hey, dad, listen, there's no way it was me or anybody else in this room that will hire somebody to kill you. He's now trying to think, okay, who's outside my organization want me dead? And let's not forget, this man believes that he is untouchable, that everyone in that area knows who he is. Everyone in that area knows that he is some kind of mob boss. And so for him, it's kind of like, that leaves the door open for almost anybody in the city. But then he realized it could have been that Amanda girl, the one he took from the brothel earlier, he tried to have some activities with, but she ran away. And so he now believes in the possibility it was her or the lady in charge of the entire brothel. And really, once he gets there, he demands the person in charge of the brothel to bring out Amanda because he believes that she has nowhere else to go, that he believes that she must be there hiding. But at the same time, he also believes that she was the one who had hired Elektra. Now, the lady in charge of the brothel, she tells him like, listen, She's not here. The last time I saw her, she left with you. And the question is now, where is she? And so for Evgeny, he realized that maybe she's not there. And so he goes on with his day. Really, he leaves the brothel to find other people who may or may not want to hire Elektra to get rid of him. Now, after he does leave, we do see that Amanda is there. She was hiding there after their incident earlier, and thankfully he didn't see her. Now, honestly, she's not really important because out of this section right here, we're not going to see her ever again in the rest of the story. But we do see him going after other people in the city near the boardwalk to hopefully figure out who was the one who hired Elektra to come after him, who was the one who wants him basically dead. Now, we cannot forget that this is not his first time running into Elektra. He met her before. You see, he didn't tell his son Yuri the first time he met Elektra. It was a long time ago when he was not really in charge of the family. But he does tell us that there was a time where the Ma family had to meet with another Ma family to kind of make a deal with one another. And really, the meeting was going well. But then Elektra appeared. Now, when she appeared, she cleared the entire room almost. But for Evgeny, he realized at that moment how great she was as an assassin. Like, she was unstoppable. There were two different families in there that had so many guns that they could have used to actually bring her down. And unfortunately, no one could get her. And she was able to take down her targets just like that. But he was able to get away just barely. But with Elektra coming after him, this is a man who is completely paranoid. And really, he has the right to be paranoid because he's seen her in action before. He heard the stories about her. He knows that what she is actually capable of if she wants to kill one of her targets. But the thing is, he still believes that somebody out there had hired her to come after him. Now, yes, he is correct, but he believes it has to be somebody in his organization. And matter of fact, there is a brief moment where he believes it is actually his son who may had hired Elektra to come after him to hopefully kill him. Because let's not forget, when it came to him and his son Yuri, they did not really agree on how to run the family business. For Yuri, he wants to go more digital. But for Evgeny, he wants to stay old school. And so with their minds being in different areas, he's kind of believing right now in the possibility it could have been his son who hired Elektra. And so he actually does attack his son. Then he realized that he's in the wrong for attacking his own son because he believes that his own son may have hired an assassin to kill him. But later on that night, you didn't have Evgeny try to get a full night of sleep. But while trying to do that, this is a man who's still very paranoid in the possibility that maybe, just maybe, Elektra could come out of nowhere and try to kill him in his sleep. Except he does hear a bunch of noise on the rooftop. And yes, it is Elektra, but let's not forget that she got the flu. Now, earlier on, the flu has not fully affected her just yet, but by this point in the story arc, it has completely taken over her body to the point where she had just crashed through the skylight and she is completely knocked out. And so for Evgeny, this is perfect because now he can take Elektra as a hostage to learn who in the world had actually hired her. But on top of that, at least now he can say, hey, you know what? She's out cold, which means I have the chance to actually survive here. This is great. And so as we get into the final chapter for today's video, it's really more of Evgeny trying his best to figure out, okay, who hired her? And so his main goal is to interrogate her, to torture her, to hopefully get that information out of her. But the problem is for Elektra is that flu is taking over her body completely. She can barely stay awake. And this man is smacking her like no other to hopefully get what he wants out of her. Now, his son Yuri, we kind of see the idea that he's very concerned for Elektra, like he actually knows her very well. But also, he's scared of the idea that she might reveal a big secret of his. And so, that is the moment when we learn that it was actually Yuri who had hired Elektra to kill off his father. And the reason why, because like I said earlier, when it came to Yuri, he wanted to do new things in the family business, but his father still believed in the old ways, the old school ways. But also because his father believed that he knew what was best for the actual family. And so for Yuri, he hated the idea that his father was not even trying to give him a fair chance here. And so what he did was he hired Elektra to go ahead and kill off his father so that he'll be able to actually take over the family to kind of show that he knew what he was talking about. And so as we jump back over to the present day, this man is freaking out about the possibility that Elektra might actually tell his father that it was your son who hired me to kill you. Now for Yuri, he tried to tell his father like, hey dad, you know what? Why are you trying to torture her? Why are you trying to get this piece of information out of her? Why not just go ahead and, kill her off? Now, for Evgeny, he does believe that Yuri is right. He should kill off Elektra, but he still wants to know who had hired her to come after him. Now, with Elektra being sick with the flu, she begins to hallucinate really bad to the point where she believes that now she is talking to the demon god known as Bara, or the god of death to be more exact. Now, we had talked real briefly about Bara in our last video because when it came to Elektra, she went to a different country where in that country, Bara was their god of death. And so for her, she believes right now that she is seeing the god of death in front of her. But in reality, it's just, Evgeny and his crew. And so you have Bara kind of basically talking down to her, saying like she's nothing, that she cannot even stop him, the god of death. But you have Elektra believing that she's actually having a conversation with Bara, and so she's trying her best to talk back to it, saying that she'll break free and actually kill off the god of death. Now, while she is saying all of this, you have Evgeny and his crew believe that she has gone officially crazy. And they're kind of like, you know what? Let's go ahead and just step away for a brief moment because honestly, she's kind of scary right now. And I feel like she might actually kill us if we give her the chance. Now, once you have most of the crew leave, including Evgeny, you have Yuri stay behind. And the reason why, because he still believes that Elektra is on his side, that Elektra is going to help him killing off his father. Except as soon as the man cuts her free, she kills off Yuri just like that. There goes Yuri. And the only reason why, because she saw Yuri as Bara, the god of death. Something she has to conquer, something she has to get rid of. And the reason why I'm saying that, because remember, for Elektra, she had died by the hands of Bullseye, but then she was brought back by the Hand. And so after being brought back to life after being killed off by Bullseye, it's kind of like she was able to cheat death, but at the same time, she's still trying her best to conquer death. The whole idea that she was brought back to life and sooner or later, she might meet her actual end once again. Either way, because of Elektra being sick, she still continues to hallucinate to the point where she believes that every single member of the actual family, including Evgeny, she believes is actually Bara, the god of death. And so right now, she's trying her best to conquer the god of death by killing off the god of death. And so the entire family, the entire Ma family has been killed off by Elektra just like that. But in reality, she has no idea that she is killing them off. And the book really ends with her going back to her hotel room and getting some rest. And once she was able to get that rest, she does feel a whole lot better. But now she's kind of wondering what the heck just happened and how the heck she got back to her hotel room. Either way, you do have the hotel owner tell her like, hey, listen, you gotta leave because I actually need this room for my new customer coming in later on today. So Sorry, but get out. And the book really ends on that note right there. And like I said, there was one more issue after this story arc. It was really used as a way to wrap up the entire series. But yeah, this is going to be the end of our coverage over Elektra, the 2001 series. So we covered Brian Michael Bendis, Greg Rucka, and now Robert Rodi's run on the character. So yeah, guys, that's it. And I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video, but also our coverage over the entire series. Because honestly, I found most of the stories somewhat enjoyable or really good. For me, there weren't any really bad stories in this actual series. But with that being said, guys, see you on the next comic book video. Later.